I would like to start it with a brief introduction of Aereo, what it does, and when it started.
So we started our journey in 2013 from IIT Kanpur, and with the pure alignment or focus on providing solutions for enterprise applications using drones. So Aereo is a rebranded name. We have been known for quite a long period of time by the name Aravan Unmanned Systems or AUS. We just rebranded for some branding as well as expansion related reasons. So our journey began with developing only hardware as a solution for surveying and mapping applications of drones when it comes to a civilian use case or applications with respect to sectors which are concerned with the enterprises. But over a period of time, we have evolved into a business intelligence company where we not only focus on providing hardware or drones which are specifically built for collecting data for surveying and mapping application, but we have also built very robust and very integrated data analytics solutions on the cloud, which consumes the data generated by the drone and then gives very specific set of outputs, which are basically in the form of business insights for very specific sectors which we target today. So right now, as a company, we target sector like mining, metal, and power in one category, urban and rural infrastructure as second category, and infrastructure as the third category, which comprises of construction of roads, railways, or large infrastructure like factory compounds, ports, which require continuous monitoring of the construction exercise or require very detailed surveying and mapping related functions to plan the development of the site. So these are the three broad areas which we focus upon, and we have complete suite of solutions, including hardware and software as a service bundle, which is required by these industries. So, for example, in case of mining, we help them do their inventory assessment, change detection, planned versus actual comparison, assessment of.
Okay. So, sir, in the recent year, a lot of development has started in the manufacturing of electronics and components in India. So, there is a similar scheme for drones, that is PLI. So, how this PLI scheme is helping the sector, and what are the challenges in this scheme too?
See, any purpose of any PLI for any sector is to basically boost the manufacturing in India, so that more and more people pick up indigenous manufacturing, and any foreign player who wants to really cater to the India market should also prioritize doing indigenous manufacturing. With that you create jobs, with that you create awareness, with that you create skills, and also incentivize companies which are taking up the responsibility to manufacture and develop in India, right? So that their cost can be reduced. So for companies like us, it's a big encouragement because whatever money or whatever incentive is coming from PLI scheme can be reinvested back into either R&D or expanding the manufacturing capacity. And that is what generally small scale companies need. Some incentivization for putting the effort towards Atmanirbhar Bharat. Otherwise, what's the difference between someone who's trading a foreign made drone and someone making in India by taking all the effort, which is generally too high in the beginning because it's not established ecosystem yet. So you have to do a lot of hard work to be able to establish a supply chain design and find out your own suppliers and vendors to get into the pure manufacturing of drones in India yet. So the incentives helps in that encouragement. Whatever cost inefficiencies exist in the sector right now, those inefficiencies are covered by the incentive of the PLI scheme.
So, sir, I have heard a lot of companies saying that we will deliver medicine through drones or we will deliver food through drones. But I see in India a lot of the wires are hanging near the homes, or there are so many challenges. I think a month back, a drone crashed in a metro track in Delhi, and it disrupted the metro operation. So, do you think this delivery of food or medicine is possible through drones, considering the density of houses in India or the free available space for drones to fly?
Sure. See, any sector when it is emerging, right, there will be failures. So generally, as a society in India, we are very failure averse society. So failures are very common in any budding sector. You look at EVs, still large companies are having their EVs getting caught by fire, right? If you look at automobile, even today, Honda, Hyundai kind of companies call back their vehicles after they find any defect and thousands of numbers after production, right? If you look at Toyota kind of companies also, which are globally renowned for their quality standards, they recall their cars when they have any issues. So failures are part of any engineering and all. When any attempt made towards building anything new will have its own learning curve. And in that learning curve, failures are important. Without failure, you don't learn. However, one could be more responsible towards where you are operating these drones so that a failure should not cause any severe damage. So I definitely condemn the practice of using drones which are not yet a very stable technology over populated areas. The incident which you mentioned, which happened on the Delhi metro, was a very unfortunate incident. And I totally feel that while the technology is emerging, it is the responsibility of the companies and startups to make sure that under the current state, they should not use it over critical infrastructure and populated areas and avoid such catastrophic outcomes. As far as your questions is concerned about the possibility, definitely delivery of medicines, I would say, would happen or is already going to start with the drones. I do not see or foresee delivery of e-commerce goods happening from door to door level in the urban populated areas yet, because that would require drone technology to really become very mature, and a lot of supporting infrastructure which is around traffic management, defining very specific corridors for drones, and defining times of operation, standards of operation, certification criteria. All those have to be sorted out, and it's an emerging technology. Nowhere in the world they have figured this out. So India is still ahead in the curve in terms of creating the standards and policy roadmap. So, but when it comes to rural areas, if you look at the hilly rural areas, when you talk about Uttarakhand, you talk about the northeastern states, talk about the Western Ghats, the general time and effort taken to transport any emergency supply via surface is very high. So that's where drone becomes very effective, because you can transport, let's say, 3 4 kilometer, 10 kilometer, 20 kilometer with in a straight line instead of going on a curvy road which basically compromises through the mountains, right? You don't have to do that, and the time taken is very less because the drone essentially flies at 100 kilometers per hour constant in air. So within 15 20 minutes you can deliver in 10 to 10 kilometer, which is not possible generally when you go by road. So when it comes to emergency medicines, blood supply, vaccines, anti-venom, those kind of organs where there is a response time more important than the cost of transport, right? That's where drones are going to get adoption in the beginning of their product market fit curve, I would say. So logistics drones for these applications, you will see already some very known. Meghalaya is doing such POC. AIMS Rishikesh has started a pilot on this line. So likewise, and there are companies and there are users which are doing these experiments in these areas, which makes more sense than trying to do it in Delhi, which is already having a good network of hospitals and density of pharmacies, mostly having a stock of all kind of medicines you need.
Yeah. So, sir, generally, regulation from the government needs time to catch up with the emerging technology. For that case, autonomous vehicles are example. So there are so many challenges when you consider autonomous vehicles, like who will take the responsibility in, when any accident happens, and there are many more such areas where the regulation is needed. So, what do you think are the areas where government should define policies or regulation when it comes to drones?
See, government has been doing a good amount of work when it comes to especially drone sector. India is still ahead of the on the curve with respect to other developed countries also. If you look at our rules, one of the most profound rules existing in the market across the globe. If you look at our airworthiness standards to certify the drone for their airworthiness, they are one of the best. Or I would say there are only a couple of countries other than India who have that, right? So government will have to keep evolving, but I would not say that it is the sole responsibility of the government. I think the industry, government, and academia will have to work together, because generally the fundamental research happens in academia, which unlocks the future potential. And based on the potential of the future, the industry sees where there is a commercial outcome expected and works along with the academia to make sure that the regulatory ecosystem is prepared to facilitate that growth, right? And generally, in putting all of these three together, the role is played by industry bodies. okay, which are created. So I would say in India, the good part is that we have a very strong industry body representing the drone sector called the Drone Federation of India, which works very closely with these government offices, academia, and industry. So as far as that bridge is concerned between the three parties, it exists. However, we need to increase the pace and the depth of innovation, right? And I think certain areas which are not touched yet, which is beyond visual line of sight, let's say operations of drones, and also eVTOL applications of drone, which is drone taxi. Some way the experimental possibilities should be opened in a very controlled manner over some designated areas, so that people who are willing to do R&D in that segment could also have ease of doing their development, and we can attract a few players from overseas market as well, so that they can get a better ecosystem for their R&D in India, considering the fact that once these regulatory bottlenecks are solved, manpower is one of the best class manpower they can get in the world, whether it is high tech engineering or let's say general implementation related engineering. So I think improvising on the PLI benefit to incentivize local development, I would not say only manufacturing, but local development is one such step which which government can take almost immediately, so that people who are innovating get more incentives and encouraged to innovate more locally and have domestic intellectual property created. And a clear roadmap should be defined that in next 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, what all possibilities government is looking at and what will be the various phases of standards and policy development, so that the industry and government both can create a long-term roadmap and synchronize with each other, which is what generally doesn't happen. Industry realizes first and then goes to the government, tries to convince them to change any regulatory ecosystem, and it takes few couple of years to really go there. Now, since we have taken a leap in this sector, maybe we can create a long-term roadmap and synchronize both the government and the industry together, so that they don't have to really to push each other for next set of evolution. They should know that how which direction things are moving and what are the right timelines to deliver a certain outcome, whether from government side or from the industry side. And the onus lies on both. We cannot expect only government to unlock the sector. We have to have industry which is innovating and developing world-class products from India. Then
Yeah.
only it will all make sense.
Okay. So, sir, how you see drone sector and your company evolve in next 5 years or in future?
See, there are different use cases which drones are capable of serving today, right? If you look at defense, completely different class of use cases. In that also, there are now segmentation happening, surveillance, logistics, and kamikaze drones, which can damage the enemy movement, right? Similarly, in commercial segment, we have drones for various applications. You have drones which are being used for surveying and mapping. There are drones being used for inspection of vertical asset or tough to reach assets. There are drones which are being used for agricultural applications, and there are drones which are being used for videography and photography application. And all of these drones also further go deep into how to operate in different scenarios. So if you look at the autonomy of the drone today, it still requires a good set of inputs from the pilot to operate. If not from the joystick, at least from the tablet, a lot of inputs are required, and it cannot operate and sense the environment around it on its own. So in the language of autonomy, it is called level 3 autonomy. So we are at level 3 autonomy, where the pilot's inputs are still needed, but not to an extent where every maneuver has to be done remotely or from the hands. The algorithms can take care of it, but you need inputs, right? So that is level 3 autonomy. We are still to reach level 4 and level 5 autonomy. Level 5 autonomy means you just tell the drone what job needs to be done. It will figure out its own way, sense its environment, avoid obstacles, plan its own motion, collect the data, sense where the data has to be collected, instead of a person deciding that, oh, I see a rust on this particular structure, so I should collect more pictures of this particular location. Drone will sense. So that is the level at which things will move. And second thing will happen is that there will be a use case specific capabilities which people will develop. Today, drone is there for surveying and mapping. Tomorrow, there will be a solution for surveying and mapping of mines and surveying and mapping of roads. And both will have a different approach towards how you are collecting, storing, distributing, processing, and also analyzing the data, right? So a lot of edge computing, artificial intelligence, autonomy, this will be added in the entire process if we look at the evolution going forward. And hence it will become easier to operate these drones. And you will, the day is not far when every village will have one drone, and a local entrepreneur or hyper local entrepreneur will be serving local demand within that village, whether it is surveying of the panchayati raj infrastructure, or let's say spraying pesticides and fertilizers over the crop being grown in that particular area. Just like every village has one or two tractors, we'll have every village having one or two drones. And similarly, every mine will have a drone. Every road construction agency will have a drone to monitor the progress of the road construction. Every renewable energy infrastructure, wind turbine or solar plants, will be monitored, and their inspections would be done by using drones. So that's the future I see, and this future is huge. You know, if you just look at the market for all of these use cases in India, by 2028, the market is basically expected to become around 11 to 12 billion dollar market. Agriculture itself is 6 to 7 billion dollars out of it. So it's not a small market, it's a huge market, and it's a strategic market. So much of data of your enterprises and critical infrastructure is going to be collected, that having indigenous companies is essential, capability is essential, because you cannot afford to get this data outside the geographical boundaries of the country. And if it, by God's sake, if it lands within the wrong hands, a lot of misuse of this data can be made. So data security becomes essential. So a lot of data security standards will come into play. However, one of the major issue will be that would you let a certain country have the data copy with them, which country have very bad, let's say, reputation in the world when it's come to data security, right? So you can't. Hence, creating your own ecosystem is very important. For example, one of the neighbors in the north which we have is known for their reputation of data theft from various sources. Right? Individual data sets are not left. Forget about the enterprise data sets. They are more let's say critical for a country's growth. So such leakages cannot be since such leakages cannot be afforded by a country. It is important that we develop an indigenous ecosystem and we evolve in these directions of autonomy and intelligence, so that we have less dependency on skills to get the maximum potential of the technology.
So, sir, thank you for talking to Times Tech Media. It was a very insightful talk. So, thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot, Om. These were very, very good and relevant questions. And if while writing the article or covering this video, if you feel that there is any clarification needed, feel free to get back to Rajshri and we'll be happy
Mm,
to provide those inputs.
sure, sir.
Thank you, Om.
Thank
Take care.